So welcome, everybody, to our talk for today, our little story, the penetration into the U.S. market for B2Cs. Before we get that going, just want to take a second, introduce myself, introduce my company, Targo, and then we'll get right down to it. All right? So, my name is Jeremy. Clearly from my accent, you can tell I'm probably not from around here. My accent will probably pop out at some point. A bonus points to anyone who can guess where I'm from. Dang, was it that easy? The borough. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so I work for a consulting company right here in Tel Aviv called Targo Consulting. And what we do, we provide consulting. We do market research. We do construct business plans. We put together investor presentations, one-pagers for startups of all sort of levels, from pre-seed to seed, round A, all different kinds of spaces. I've seen a lot of interesting stuff, you guys. No lie. From med tech to cyber, a couple cannabis farms here and there. They do say it's the future, right? And things like that. It's been quite cool. But today we're here to talk about and tell a story about how we can get into the US market. Some of the challenges, some of the interesting parts, and how you can succeed if you're a B2C. So we have some examples here, right? So when we talk about B2Cs and B2Bs, generally the apps we hear about it that are big, the apps that really make a difference, the ones that have staying power on our phones, obviously are B2Cs. We're consumers. I mean, in some cases, maybe we're the products too, but I guess in that case. But that's exactly right. B2C, the end users are consumers. B2B are for businesses. We have here Facebook and Oracle. Now for Facebook, I mean, who here has had a Facebook or has one now?
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't, right? I thought it was so cool when I got one in the winter of 2008 as a 13-year-old, thinking, wow, I could finally be like all the cool kids and the college kids that had it. All right, now it's just like, well, my grandfather has it too. Hey, he's really cool though, it's fine. And Oracle, being business to business, some of the biggest businesses currently in the States today, Costco, Walmart, even Amazon, either use it as their primary or even some of their secondary or one of many databases to provide that service to them. But there are issues that the B2Cs run into that I've seen, especially in development. We've had a lot of B2Cs come into our space and ask to help them develop. It's a tough market out there. It's cutthroat. You go on the Google Play Store, you go on the App Store for your Apple. There are millions of B2Cs. And the question that they have to sort of ask themselves is how to differentiate themselves. What makes them stand out? We always sort of advise our clients to try to get at least an MVP going. It doesn't have to be perfect per se in the sense of all the features and everything laid out. But if you have a core competency, a core function that will make you stand out from those 2.7 million apps and have people go, I've got to download this app, tell their friends about it, and then it becomes big and has staying power on your phone that you use it, that's something special. Because retention rate is such a key problem for a lot of B2Cs. What is retention rate? The amount of users that stick around. And for a lot of B2C applications and services, the issue lies in that after 3 months, you're yesterday's news. People, if they find something to be too complicated, if they don't understand the concept of what you have to offer, they're going to delete your app and not use your service anymore. So that's why when you go to development, you have to be able to have that core competency be airtight. For B2Bs, it's a little different. For B2Bs, they don't need to have an ironclad MVP to start. How many of you work in offices where maybe you have a system that you work on for customer relationship management or even just logging in for work every day? I can tell you in my last office, if something went wrong, you were on the line with support for the better part of maybe an hour. Anyone experience that? Yeah, it's not fun. You lose a lot of productivity. But where B2Bs have such a higher retention rate, we see here about 93 to 95%, is because you can be on the line with someone to support. You don't have to have a complete product right out of the gate. It can be something that is continuously developed, in stages and upgrades, things like that. So here's some interesting fact on the ground. For the startups coming out of here, 80% of them are business focused. They're B2Bs. And 20%, as shown here, are B2Cs. Now, there is one interesting case here. Can anybody spot that interesting case for me? Mobileye, correct. Does anyone know why they occupy both spaces? When Mobileye was going to market, when Mobileye was starting up, they couldn't just approach Mercedes or BMW, because when you're engineering a car, it's a process. It's like it could take 3 to 5 years to really integrate new changes. So they had to start aftermarket by appealing straight to the consumers to say, oh, if you put this in your car, it will provide this value. And make a noise, if you're in my uncle's car, that will absolutely scare the hell out of you if he swerves into another lane. And now, as Mobileye has developed and it went for its exit and things like that, it's now being integrated slowly more and more into more car manufacturers. So, let's talk about the main event, shall we? Let's talk about how to break into the good old USA. And what does that mean when it means to going to the States? It can mean a lot of different things. It could mean, making sure that maybe in the case of marketing or sales, you can have someone on the ground who knows the market better than anybody else. Someone who's local, someone who knows, what the pulse on the street is. What are the newest trends that people are interested in? And then that could help you. It could even help you develop your product further and tailor it for individual markets. Another thing is having the right team. We see a lot of clients that come in that are, they've started a startup with maybe buddies from their units, maybe cousins, brothers. It's a lovely sight, in the sense that, it's something you're doing together. But sometimes that isn't what's best for the business. I'll tell you a very, very, very corny story to show you the value of team. So, like many 14-year-olds growing up in New York and learning how to play instruments and learning how to, trying to be cool and having their hair down to here. Yes, I'm quite ashamed of that. But nonetheless, when I was in high school, we started a band, right? All my best friends from high school, we were hanging out, playing music, and we were going to conquer the world. As you tend to think at 14 and can play maybe 4 chords on a guitar. But there was a weak link. We had a person in the group who, we used to have, if you could believe this, people would have sort of the gall to come up to us and say, man, you guys are really great, but your singer is terrible. But what do we do about it? Nothing. We were best friends. We weren't going to do anything. We weren't going to try to make it go any further. Because why upset the good thing we have with someone so close that we trust? So to bring that back to business, that can often hamper you. If there is someone that maybe is hampering the development, maybe holding you up in going the extra mile. So you have to make sure that you make the right decisions for your business, and that you have the right people that can help you get to where you want to get. So another issue, this one is my personal favorite, because this is one that we like to throw around a lot at the office. It's this concept called Octopus Syndrome. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, look at that. It's gorgeous. When you're, as I mentioned before, when you're starting a B2C, having that core idea is so essential. There's an expression. Anyone know the expression KISS? Anyone know that expression? What does it mean? Anyone tell me? Yes, 100%. Keep it simple, stupid. And that's the thing. When you're trying to engage customers, when you're trying to engage investors, they don't want to see an octopus. They don't want to see all these tentacles out. I'm going to try to do this, I'm going to try to do this, and I want to do this, and I do this. With a core, simple concept, they can easily define what you're trying to do, what your value is, and it leaves very little margin for error when trying to get seed users to be like, oh, this is a cool application, this is a cool service, I'm going to bring this on and download it to my phone and use it. Another thing when we talk about engaging investors that's so important is this idea that concept is king, more so than features. You have to be able to maybe explain your concept in maybe a sentence or two. Let me ask you all a question. What is the most used application on your phone right now? WhatsApp, great example. Now, can you tell me in a sentence or two, what is the main concept of WhatsApp?
Sending text.
Right, and sending, and also doing it in a group. Yeah, being able to message multiple people at once. So so WhatsApp is a phenomenal example because SMS existed already, right? And because it's over the internet, you didn't have to pay, phone companies to, because I mean, when I've had my first phone, my dad used to say, 200 texts a month, that's it. I'm not paying for any more. WhatsApp solves that problem because, okay, you pay for data, that's it. Amazing. Again, another thing we have to focus on is to emphasize the need you're trying to address. Just like that, just with WhatsApp, we talk about trying to communicate like an after-school pickup or to communicate, even between colleagues at work. It's like, do you guys want to get drinks after work? Yeah, sure, let's go. Send it to the group and we'll be on our way, And yeah, and basically you have to limit the number of tentacles that you have because at the end of the day, if it's too complex and you can't explain it, that it might scare off investors in the long run. Another common mistake that we've encountered, at least in our experience, are a lot of these B2Cs trying to pilot here in Israel, and then eventually trying to go into the US market. We asked them, why do they want to do this? Can anybody maybe think of some answers that they would give us? It's convenient. It's cheap. Anything else?
Friends.
What was that? I'm sorry?
Friends.
Friends, yes. Relationships. Family. You don't want to necessarily uproot your family.
We don't know the other market.
Right. Exactly. You're not familiar with the other market. So of course, what you know is always safe. It always feels good. But what people tend not to understand, or what that tends to do, is, well, it limits you in the sense that success here doesn't necessarily translate to, success in the U.S. 10,000. When an investor looks at, let's say, your one-pager, and you have 10,000 users in Israel, they say, okay, good. But it may be a big fish in a small pond. But 10,000 users in, in the New York metro area, in Silicon Valley, in the U.S. in general, that's awesome. Now look, going into the U.S. market doesn't mean you're going to conquer coast to coast. Believe me, I've actually never even been to the Pacific coast. So it's tough. Not hard to believe, right? You start small. Start in Silicon Valley. Start in Washington. Or Seattle. Sorry. Start in New York. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to, put all your eggs across the entire basket of the U.S. However, there are exceptions to this. Can anybody maybe think of an exception? You know what? Better question. How did you all get here tonight? Who here drove here tonight? I heard it. That's right. Waze. In certain cases, piloting in Israel makes sense because there are certain constraints. Say with a mapping application, you're not necessarily going to start in the city of New York because let's say, okay, I'm gonna have this mapping app and we're gonna start in Manhattan, but then the second you cross the Hudson Bridge into the Bronx, it's gonna be like you've fallen off the face of the earth. So in a country like Israel, you can map it more, relatively quickly in comparison to, the whole states in the U.S. And therefore, once you've proven, okay, we've mapped Israel, our concept works here, now we can begin to develop overseas. So success in the U.S., we touched upon one of these before. We talked about building a team with partners in the U.S. We had a client who was working for a startup here who, their website wasn't getting a lot of traffic. They weren't getting a lot of sales. And then they brought in this really folksy fellow from Chicago who knew the market and who knew sales, both here and there. And their sales skyrocketed. Their website, I went on it, it was night and day, the difference. And it proves, again, when you have the right people on the ground, well, then you're cooking, you got something going there. Another important thing when doing this is doing your homework. It's so important, and we tell clients this, to really have a grasp or basically having their finger on the pulse of what's going on, in the market they're trying to break into. It's doing extensive market research, not only in consumer behaviors and, what are maybe some of the hot trends in X, Y, and Z, but also trying to understand the competitive landscape. Understanding your competition is going to be so essential because if, let's say, you're trying to break, I'll give you an example. We had a client who was working with an application that was trying to encourage more physical activity at maybe a less strenuous pace. So in doing a market research and trying to understand what else existed in the market, we saw that, okay, this competitor has 10,000 users, this competitor has 100,000 downloads on the Google Play Store, this one has 10 million. Now you might say, whoa, 10 million users. I'm not going anywhere near there. But no, that's not necessarily the case. What does it prove? It proves there's a need. It shows that there is a need. People are already trying to solve this problem, and now you're going to come along and you're going to do it better. Investors will know if there's a product, if there's competition, it's only tens of users, hundreds of users. He's going to say, well, why are we even going to bother, going into battle, so to speak? What are you trying? Where's the need? So again, it's all about doing your homework and understanding what's out there. I cannot stress enough. I know I've said it multiple times. You probably, as a tape recorder, probably could play it back for me. But I've said that the importance of having someone on the ground. But that also could mean business relationships. It's a very, very tired and almost a little sad cliche that you said that in business to succeed it's who you know, right? Particularly on Wall Street. But that kind of rings true here because if you can get the right relationship going with the right strategic partnership, it also can bring in a fresh perspective, a new school of thought to your product that you maybe hadn't even considered. Can bring you exposure. Let's say you partner up with an influencer, thought leaders in the U.S. that would say, if they could show your product maybe on their YouTube channel or in a commercial, then you would already have a built-in audience of people and exposure to help you get the ball rolling.
Influencing.
Exactly, influencing. Another way to succeed is to get U.S.-based investing, as opposed to just looking for investors here or investors in Europe or what have you. You could almost have these what we could kind of call like activist investors. These are people that'll become more invested, more involved in the development of your product, more involved, and it can help it grow and succeed and connect you with the right people to move to the next round of fundraising so that you could be the next best thing, right? Everyone's heard of this, right? Everyone's heard of Tinder? Yeah. So this was, when I was in university, the biggest thing. This app was amazing. I loved this app because my roommate used it all the time and then he would never be in the room. It was great. watch Netflix, play my guitar. Oh, it's so much fun, guys. Tinder is a very good case to try to understand sort of these three core principles that you can undertake to be successful. And that is identifying your seed users, identifying where to go, basically where to go to market, and how you reach those seed users once you're in that marketplace. So Tinder itself, being a location-based application, needed critical mass. It needed a lot of people in one place at one time, a hyper-social environment. And there's no better place in the US to start than a college, right? You would think, oh, maybe a crowded city street, but nonetheless, a college. And that's exactly what they did. The founders of Tinder started their initial landing zone was their university, the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. And then they said, okay, we have our users, we have our go-to-market. How are we going to reach them? How do we get as many people as possible to use this application? What they did actually is pretty cool, I must admit. They threw parties. They threw parties and said to people, if you want to come in and hang out with us, then download the application and use it. So boom, instantly people were using it, and it's so simple. Tinder succeeds because before that, I mean, who remembers what online dating looked like before really the boom in smartphones? Anybody? There was a lot of websites. You had to fill out these, pages and pages of profile information. Some of them you had to pay for. This was simple. All you have to do, maybe get a couple pictures for your profile. Excuse me. Say there's certain music that you like, maybe a couple small things. Right, left, and we're done. That was it. It was simple. I remember reading something where some of the founders said that they wanted that their value proposition was to try to reinvent the way that dating was done in the 21st century. And to an extent, conceptually, they did. I mean, I went to a wedding in the States 3 weeks ago of people that met through applications such as this. So the effect has had such a wide-sweeping, Tinder's had such a wide-sweeping effect that you can see such a simple core competency has been wildly successful. And that's why I keep reiterating why it's so important to understand when you're going to market in the US, which market would be ideal, the most ideal to go. Understanding who those seed users are. But look, there are challenges. An application, let's say, designed for the hustle bustle, for the person on the go in New York, is not going to necessarily be applicable for the horse rancher out in Montana. And of course, there are financial constraints. You have to go to a place that will give you the most, as they say, bang for your buck. Your money can go the furthest, your investment can go the furthest. And then once you've established that, understanding what your consumers are looking for. Maybe their age, what their purchasing power is, what their needs are. And Tinder's a wonderful case. And I'll give you another one right now. There's someone, he was from here originally, but a concept that's changing the face of insurance in the US. Does anybody know what company I'm referring to? Lemonade, exactly. From their website itself, it's focused. They're only dealing with a niche part of the market. They're not trying, we talked about the octopus, right? We talk about trying to do this and be there for this person. There's a saying, I don't know, tell me if anyone's heard this one, that if you try to be everything to everybody, then you're nothing to everybody. Because it's impossible to make everybody happy and reach every single need. But with Lemonade, It started with just contents insurance. Let's say there's a flood or there's a break-in or something like that, and your computer gets ruined or your guitar gets stolen or what have you. Then, there's a niche for it. It's very focused. And now they've expanded to homeowners and renters insurance. It's a simple concept with and a very clear value proposition. Instant everything. It's like you sign up for insurance, you get your payment, you get paid, that's it. The whole thing can take maybe less than 5 minutes. And then, of course, we rounded off with a clear and simple pricing structure. I don't know if anyone here has attempted to sign up for insurance anywhere outside of here. I mean, hell, actually, I signed up for insurance here, and I had all these forms. You had to go to intermediaries, and I mean, I never had to do that back, at least back in the States. Granted, I was also through work. It was a little different, but anyway. And it's a hassle. You get handed stacks of papers and filling out and talk to this intermediary. No, you just fax it to this office, not this office. But here, you want homeowners insurance? Great. It's $5. You want renters insurance? $25. Clear, simple, to the point. And we talked about before with Tinder, 3 very simple concepts. A path to success. There's a niche market. It's not the entire insurance market. It's not like, here's the price of this insurance agency and this insurance agency and this kind and auto, and it's very simple. It's to the point. They have a simple business model. They take a flat fee, and then they take 75% to pay claims, which is higher than the average anyway. I think the average is about 50%. And last but not least, they engage locally. Anything that isn't used in unclaimed premiums goes back to charities, goes back to the community, which is pretty cool, To be engaged locally, to be a part of the community you're working in. When we talk about being a B2C and trying to break into the American market, these are kind of like rules of thumb, basically, that you can, keep for yourself. We talked about KISS, keeping it simple, stupid. No offense to anybody, I'm sorry. Starting small. Just because you're going into this behemoth of a country that is the U.S. doesn't mean you'll conquer it in a day. I mean, you've heard that old cliche, Rome wasn't built in a day. Neither does your business. It doesn't have to be built in a day. It doesn't have to have all the features to start. You can have a core competency, bring it to a small niche market to start, and then you're off. And then focus on the needs of your consumers, on your audience, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who matter the most. They're the ones that are going to put bread in your jar, so to speak, to quote the great Billy Joel. And last but not least, think locally. Think and work with someone who's an expert in the field, who knows the market, who knows exactly what's going on. Therefore, you don't go in blind. You don't go in kind of asking, what am I doing here? And is this all worth it? With the right person, the right guidance, even you could have a meteoric rise like Tinder did or like Lemonade has had. Just go play by the rules. Go by the book. Lemonade is a great example of this. Shai Winiger, who started Fiverr, went in, he came, he conquered. Because he knew to follow rules just like this. Focusing on one market, focusing on a certain key users, working within the local U.S. market, and succeeded. And with that, dear friends, I'd like to say thank you. I'll take questions now.